and welcome to episode 7 of Hashtag Ask Alex. And forgive me, slightly disorganized today. It's been a crazy week, busy week, and so slightly slow on the uptake. But hope everybody is well wherever you might be viewing from. Thank you as ever for continuing to support me. I do appreciate it. Weather here in London has been crazy hot, and it looks like it's only going to continue, which is good, I guess, but also going to make lockdown somewhat more challenging in terms of social distancing as people want to get out of their houses and go and do things outside. But we shall see. So, what has happened since I last spoke with you? I talked about systems and processes last time when I signed off in terms of ended up getting 3 boxes of barbecue meat versus 1. I only paid for 1. That was all very good, and my freezer is now very full. Did my first ever 14-hour low and slow pulled pork on my Kamado Joe barbecue, which was very tasty. And we're planning to do kind of more of that this weekend with it's a bank holiday weekend, long weekend in the UK. So planning to do more of that. My lovely neighbours are doing some excavating. So Matt is currently trying to wiggle a very narrow digger down our very narrow side access. So I'm going to hope that when I end this broadcast, I've still got my wall to my house is still upright. What else happened this week? It was my daughter's our daughter's 5th birthday, Olivia. She turned 5. She's finding it quite hard. We had some friends doing social distancing over the on our drive, and she's, as I said, for a 5-year-old, she understands what's happening, but she has her up days and her down days. So she gets it. But it was a very fun day today, but she's on a bit of a downer today. Interesting to see schools going back, may or may not. Decide what we're going to do there. And we have 2 additions to our house who are they're not Jeeves and Worcester, that's what we were going to call them. Smokey and the Bandits. 2 kittens have joined the Lowe household. So maybe they'll make an appearance next time and you can say hello to them. But enough of me waffling on. What about you? Because to know what's happening in your world, if anybody there is in the world of chat, you want to put things in the chat box, then do let me know. But so a few things caught my attention this week. A few blog posts. One in particular, which I'm going to do. I'm going to do a Passel. I should talk about Passel on my next one. Passel, awesome tool. Check them out. Passel.net. PASSLEE.net. But Rob Coyne from Thunderhead orchestration software, very cool piece of kit. It's kind of not the future, it's here, but it's what big retail companies do in terms of understanding all the touch points that their clients have with them, be it anything from digital, but also through to physical. So retail use it a lot through the banking app, through to going into in-store and then website visits and so on. And it's all around what they refer to as customer orchestration, so you can have really powerful touch points and really truly understand your audience, and then give them a hyper-personalized approach to your marketing. So you're not kind of broadcast marketing to them. It really is specific to them as that individual, based on exactly what they're doing and when they're doing it. A lot of sports fans use it in terms of that side of things. So fans will go through turnstiles, they will scan their tickets, they'll be in the stadium, they can see within the stadium, sign up to email letters, news alerts and so on, and then fill out their profiles, work out who their best players are, favourite players are, and again they can then kind of, through customer orchestration, you can then create this really personalised experience. Anyway, Rob shared this article from 2 gentlemen who I hadn't heard of but want to connect them, called Peter Dorrington and Ian Golding. And I'm just going to do my little funky screen. I'm not even drinking. Screen change to these 2 gentlemen here, Peter Dorrington and Ian Golding. As ever, I'll put these in the I'll put the links to the articles in the video afterwards. But this all around listening or not listening, as it were, to their customer point. And they talk about, those of you familiar with the Net Promoter Score, yada yada. This is kind of the next level of that, and it's these varying things. So the voice of the customer, which describes how your customers perceive, experience the journey. And we've done this in the past. I've done this in the past when I worked for a law firm, set up a client listening program, and pretty basic. Worked with a brilliant team led by Chris Lang at Acuigen. Really great outfit. Highly recommend them if you want to look to customer listening, customer feedback, client feedback. But they had a team, phone up, survey, how are we doing, what could we do better, usual kind of stuff. Deal with the feedback, then ideally react to that and change how you manage, serve, work with that client accordingly. Voice of the employee, that's employee advocacy. We talked about that a lot. Employee advocacy is an extremely powerful tool when leveraged properly, when you empower your audience to talk about and advocate the firm, the brand, work here, mental health awareness, supporting all this kind of stuff. And then the voice of the process, which was a new one to me, which can provide a link between the business activity and the journey. So it's how do you actually get to A to B? So from don't know who you are through to my hands going through to signing the line along the line that is dotted. They go on to talk through the value chain. You can look through all of this systems, processes, journeys. But it's this bit here which really resonated and jumped out to me. And I'm going to read this out in case you can't quite see it on the screen. Customers. At this point, it's worth remembering that most customers don't care what it takes to deliver a product or service. They are only interested in how it meets their needs. That's what we need to think about, how it meets their needs. Furthermore, customers do not evaluate an experience on a logical, independent basis, rather through the lens of their prior experience and expectation. And again, that's the other thing. We're not logical human beings. Humans are not logical creatures. We're not a series of zeros and ones in a computer program. We are based on emotion, based on sentiment. We buy things on. We know that we buy things on through emotion. We know that emotion plays a huge part in the decision making process, and there's no change in that in kind of the B2C or the the business to business perspective. And it's emotion things like back in the day when I do cold calling and you pick up the phone and someone tells you to F off and go away. That's not you. You could have caught them a bad day. They could have had no sleep because their kids are messing around. They could have financial stresses. They could have just fired someone. They could have just broken up with someone. Their emotions have let them into the kind of the business world. But I digress and I'm rambling. It's this. I love this quote from Aldous Huxley. Experience is not what happens to you; it's how you interpret what happens to you. And of course, this is a really difficult thing to get for people to get their head around, and also for brands to get their head around. I've talked about this before. I think Predictive Analytics by Eric Siegel, brilliant book, highly recommend it. I'll put the link into Amazon. You and I could see an advert for Coke, Diet Coke here, and that. We see exactly the same advert. Could be on social media, could be on TV, could be wherever. It doesn't matter. Could be walking past a billboard. Could be static. Doesn't matter. They're all. We see it. You and I will react differently to that advert. We'll have different feelings towards it, and we'll, as I said, to what they're saying here. It's how you interpret what happens to you, the individual. And this book, Predictive Analytics by Eric Siegel, talks about influence. What is influence in terms of, again, different things will influence people to do different things, even though they see the same thing. So he then goes on to just keep that in mind. Then we go on to when customers are presented with an imperfect, inflexible experience, they judge it against their best experiences they've had elsewhere, albeit within the context of a specific industry or sector and their expectations. And I think this is, if I'm allowed to say, kind of the money shot in all of this. When customers are presented with an imperfect, inflexible experience, they judge it against their best experiences. And if we just pause on that, that's what we do. Hang on a second, why is this so difficult when I've had this experience elsewhere in the same place and it was really, really, really easy? Think about when you go to a restaurant. If we go back to restaurants, it's going to be kind of the not new normal. It's bizarre. You kind of use analogies, which 6 months ago, 3 months ago, were totally normal to use. Now you use an analogy, and it doesn't make any more logical sense. But we go to a restaurant, and you have a certain expectation of what should happen in terms of the level of service based on your previous experience of going to restaurants. And then when it's not what you expect it to be, then we get annoyed and frustrated. So then take that to a sales and marketing process. Your audience that you are marketing to, that you are selling to, well, they will have been through different processes with different organizations, and they will have experienced the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they will have in their minds a certain expectation of what that experience of being sold to or being marketed to should feel like. Notwithstanding that the current climate we're now in, where everything is basically online, there is now kind of this next layer of experience, because we're all used to using Deliveroo, Uber, Amazon, which for the most part they're pretty seamless. They're pretty they work, right? And there's an expectation that that's how things should be done. And when they don't work, one gets frustrated. And I touched on this last week around, it's awesome seeing all these small businesses pivot and move really quickly, but the ones that are getting it right are actually getting the overall, if you go back to this bit, the overall process experience, the whole bit is a good process and a good experience. And those that aren't getting this right, of course, we're giving them a bit of tolerance because they're learning. But over time, the next thing, let's say we get through this. What are we now? We're middle of May. Get through June, July, August, summer. Let's say you come back to September, and let's face it, we're still going to be doing the majority of our business in this way. There is now going to be a certain expectation of what this experience, this weird experience, talking to you in a box should be. And there's some very cool platforms out there which I'm tinkering with and having a look at to kind of how can we make Zoom calls or whatever more interactive, rather than just sitting here and talking and demoing, etc. And I think this is where we need to start to look at the overall end-to-end experience. It comes full circle as to where Thunderhead, this product, does that in terms of their journey orchestration software. It's really, really cool. Highly recommend you check it out. So what we need to start thinking about is not only the experience you're providing someone online, so the initial touch points in terms of your content when you're sharing content on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Facebook, Insta, whatever the platforms are from a business perspective. What is that overall journey experience for the individual? Is it going to scroll through, or does your content stand out? Is it easy to digest? Does it have context as to why they're reading it? So it's giving a nice experience to your reader. Think about in your world, what works for you, what doesn't. And if you're doing the what doesn't, then the chances are that what you're doing isn't going to work for other people as well. But then layer that on top of this in terms of look at your entire end-to-end sales and marketing process. Are you starting to analyze what was happening in the previous world, dare I say it? Is that still actually appropriate today? Is that still giving you the right overall experience to your client over and above the net promoter score? Would you recommend me? Yeah, I would. Okay, can you recommend me to someone? Oh, no, not right now, etc., etc. Which is kind of, your net promoter score is useful, but are we moving into the next iteration of that? So I'm going to do some more thinking around this. It's a great read, really great read. The next piece that caught my attention this week was Raconteur. We have worked with them in the past. They're part of the Times. If you don't follow them, do follow them. They create some really cool content. This is in partnership with Hootsuite, who we've also worked with in the past. Now, this kind of, I find, a bit of a bizarre headline that you got CMOs shift to a social first for post-pandemic. Well, I kind of get it, but if a CMO is only shifting now to social first, then they're kind of missing the point of where we were going anyway, whether it's pandemic or not. But what I wanted to highlight is where is it? It's this piece. I really like this bit from the VP of digital marketing at Hootsuite. I think it's Stephanie Gennin. Forgive me, Stephanie, if it isn't Stephanie. Where is it? Anywho, I digressed on the name. We can look at that. It is this bit here. Social should not be led by one department, but everyone connected to your organisation in the ever-changing This piece. Social media has been holding communities together and organisations. We'll need to assess how to manage the new normal. So if you think of what's happened, is actually without social media, we'd be in a very different place. We've had to create these online communities. It's amazing in the local area where I live in SW19 in London, all these WhatsApp groups that have appeared, all these Facebook groups that have appeared in terms of supporting the elderly, supporting those in need. People that are on my street who I don't know, and I know more on WhatsApp than I do actually probably even say hello to them face to face. I couldn't tell you what they look like, but we've kind of come together in creating this hub and this community around social, and it'd be interesting to see, because we're not going to go back into the office for the foreseeable. I mean, I don't have an office; we have a virtual office, but my wife works upstairs, one of the big four, big office in London, and we're not going to all go back into the office. But you still need to create that sense of community. You still need to be able to have that kind of that physical human interaction. If you're onboarding new people, you do need that you actually need that face-to-face in sense of building trust. Or if they're going to come into a really well-established team, that's really, really hard for that person to kind of break into that kind of clique when it's in a physical environment, let alone when you're trying to do it in this environment. So it'll be interesting to see. We as a firm have been talking about this for ad nauseum for the last 3-4 years in terms of how social is the glue that brings the company together. And this isn't employee advocacy. This is much more than employee advocacy. And I think that Facebook Workplace is an example of where this is. They're kind of going in this place. But this has to be more than just connecting on Slack or Teams or Facebook Workplace. There has to be that shift in kind of mindset and mentality and behaviour around what does it actually take to build the community that we need to build. Because of course, in the current situation, it was the desire to help. It was forced upon us. It was the need. People need to help. We've got the technology. Let's do it. Of course, in the business context, you may still have a massively siloed organisation. So whilst yes, we're in this situation where it's what is the new normal. Kind of getting bored of what is the new normal, but we're still working on kind of our siloed mentality. And you've got to kind of break down that culture. It has to come from the top. And I remember my previous life where we rolled out Yammer, brilliant tools. Now what was is now Microsoft Teams and equivalent to Slack. And there was a huge kind of split in the organisation. There was kind of the one half that took to it like a duck to water, created communities, like football teams, basketball teams, netball teams, common interest groups on the platform within the confines of the corporate. So that's what the company encourages. It isn't just for communicating corporate stuff. Go and build your communities within this environment. And I use it to create a sector approach, global sector approach, and this brought in expertise and people that I would never ever have met, have come across in our own internal intranet, because it just didn't allow it to. The system just wasn't built or designed that way. But of course, that's my culture, that's my mindset, that's my behaviour, and that was the behaviour of others that kind of came together in this kind of social first, if you will, environment on the internal. Then there was the other side of the organisation. I'm not effing doing this. I'm not I'm not interested in speaking to anybody else outside of my team. Everybody who needs to know me knows me. I'm not giving you my BlackBerry because my BlackBerry, I love it, and my email and doing this and so on. So big, and this was some senior people doing this open plan office, shouting this out loudly. And if you've got people doing that here, well, the juniors are going to be, okay, well, the boss isn't doing it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to engage. And then that's when the kind of the whole community aspect starts to kind of fall down and not really work, as it were. So I think we're in an interesting place. This whole kind of social first piece, and one of our clients, Catherine Cole, she's marketing manager Telstra Purple, UK business arm of Telstra, and they are building this into their culture. She's building this social first belief. This is what it is. It's a belief system. It is not technology. It is a belief system. It is a shift in culture and behavior to understand what a social first business looks like internally, to create better communication channels, bring in better collaboration, better ideation. And within this, you can start to bring out knowledge you never know you had existed. And this also then will start to obviously enable people to become more social outwardly, which is positive for the organization around what we've touched on earlier in the previous piece around customer listening and so on. So yeah, it's an interesting read, but it was just this piece that started to jump out to me in terms of that community aspect. And we go on to say the next generation of business innovation, we're driven through understanding the human connection, not channels. And I know that all sounds kind of human connection and this and that and so on. But that's what this fundamentally all boils down to, isn't it? We're people at the end of the day. And I'm not talking about the people by people bit, but there has to be that element of kind of not physical, but kind of cerebral, community that comes together to create the strong structures, that strong team environment, that strong work ethic. Prepared to go the extra mile. Research shows out there better connected, employees internally, better communication, better visibility from leadership. Employees are more inclined to stay. They're going to stay longer. They'll be happier. You get better, mental health side of things. The kind of the positive that can be driven from all of this are absolutely huge around having a social first business can actually do for you. So the other piece that I saw today was, just checking you can see that, was from this lot, FTI Consulting, good consulting. They're all good consulting firms, but it was the leadership in the. See if I can actually zoom that a bit. Here we go. That's probably slightly better for people. So it's this. So we've just talked about obviously a social first. CMOs being a social first or long week. CMOs promoting social to be social first within an organisation, etc., etc., etc. Well, I truly believe that in order for that to actually work properly, it can't come from the CMO. It has to come from the CEO or the managing director or the managing partner or the director or the owner of the business. If they truly, truly, truly want to change and shift the dynamic of an organisation, you've got to lead from the front. You've got to be that one that goes over the top, over the top first. This isn't sending the troops out first, and you're sitting, a couple of miles behind in your tent, pushing things around on a chessboard, wondering what's going on. You've got to be out there in the front, leading, and you've got to touch and feel and understand how this stuff works, so that when you as a leader and a CEO go through this kind of the pain factor of, oh my God, this is scary, I don't understand it, and I should understand it because I'm a leader, and what do I do, how do I do it, this feels like a really silly question. When you as a leader go through that, you can then empathise and sympathise with then the next layer of management, the entire business in terms of the fear they're going to feel. What if I do the wrong thing, etc. If you don't, then to be brutally honest, I can't see how any organisation can truly get this off the ground. And what's interesting, from their research, half of the businesses in the FTSE 100 and 67% of top 100 companies in Standard & Poor's 500 currently have CEOs with a presence on social media. While not all of these are regularly posting content, come to that in a minute, for those that are, benefits of active engagement are clear. We go on. 81% of people believe that CEOs who engage in social media are better equipped than their peers to lead companies in the digital world. 82% of people are more likely to trust a company whose leadership team engages with social media, and 80% of employees would prefer to work for a social CEO. So that's some pretty high stats in terms of what the view is of a CEO or a managing partner, a leader. So it's not leader, but I don't mean like leadership. Although leadership is important, absolutely, leadership needs to be on there. But the person right at the top, I'm not necessarily surprised to see this in terms of, well, if your CEO is on social media, that at least gives you some indication that they may understand the kind of the world of social and digital that we're moving into. This bit in terms of posting, there I need a big caveat around all of this, because I'm aware I see senior people on LinkedIn, but I know it's not them. And this is the kind of the risk reward piece, because their profiles are done for them by a team. And the problem I get it, but the problem with that for me is you start to lose authenticity. You start to lose a little bit of the magic behind it. That, oh my god, he or she is actually doing this, and it comes back to that mindset stuff. It comes back to that shift in behaviour. If you yourself are not prepared to shift your behaviour and your mindset around, this is what I need to do and I need to take ownership of it. Actually, bizarrely, Twitter's probably easier for CEOs to engage on than LinkedIn. My former life, Guy Granger, UK chief exec and now European chief exec for Jones Lang LaSalle. It is him on social, and it's definitely him on Twitter. 100% it is Guy that is doing it and running his account, and we all knew that. And what that felt for us is that you could follow, encourage us to get on Twitter. You could follow your CEO on Twitter and feel like you're having a one-to-one conversation, and that for a lot of people, they may never ever get the chance to meet their chief exec ever. But if you feel you're only one click, one connection away from, rather than how many hundreds of floors or even a different part of the world, different planet, that's really, really powerful. A really powerful tool in terms of employee engagement. And unsurprisingly, I'm not surprised to see this kind of level in terms of wanting to work for a social CEO. I certainly know. We always talk about this. We do our audits on organisations before we work with them. We look at what's happening. When you go to the leadership, you look at what the leadership is or isn't doing. That will give you a very clear indication as to where this business is on that overall journey, based on what leadership is or isn't doing. But the key thing around all of this is that authenticity piece, because if it's not them doing it, and I try, by all means, test this on LinkedIn or test this on Twitter. If you see a senior leadership, a senior person, senior leader, doesn't have to be CEO, post something on LinkedIn or author an article, have a comment, have a conversation with them, see what happens. I'm sorry to say, I probably guarantee that the large percentage of those people probably don't even know that article's been put on their LinkedIn profile, because it's been done for them by somebody else. You have a conversation, and it's just you're talking into an echo chamber. So it's actually better to be on a social media platform. Twitter, no. If you're going to be on Twitter, you need to be on Twitter and tweeting. Otherwise, it looks really bad. At least with LinkedIn, you can be on LinkedIn and be passive. What is more damaging is that if you are having people posting stuff on your behalf, and then people start to engage on that content, and they're getting nothing back, not even a like or a thank you for taking the time to read this, or even, dare I say it, starting into a conversation with that individual around the viewpoints and everything they're saying, that is actually more damaging than not posting anything at all. So it'll be interesting to see, how this, what leaders do around this, how this plays out. We work with CEOs, we work with managing partners on a one-to-one basis, because of course you have to take a slightly different view on this to working with maybe someone in a more junior position, because they are the face and they are the leader of the business. Like, we get that, but then if you understand what you're trying to do and what your purpose is, and then you can start to play that out in an authentic way. It can be actually hugely powerful for lead generation and client acquisition. Because if they see that their leader, the leader is out there and doing that, that's just massively powerful from a branding perspective. So that's what has caught my eye this week. It's the three things around. Let's just go back. This is my clever thingy around here. There we go. Hello. So that is what's this week? It's the customer journey piece around customer orchestration, and actually, as Aldous Huxley says, experience is not what happens to you. It is how you interpret what happens to you. And how many times we say is put yourself in your customer's shoes, put yourself in your client's shoes. Read that email out. Would you want your grandmother, or your parents, or a loved one receiving that? If not, then don't send it. Then around obviously CMOs and moving to this social first strategy, help building communities internally with the business, but building communities online. And then finally, and the key thing from all of this is this leading from the front piece from FDI. It's leading from the front, and if you as a leader are prepared to get your head out there, get out in front of your employees, get out in front of your customer base, it is brave. I recognise that, but I guarantee that you will reap the rewards in so many different different ways. But that's for me is me, and thank you all for dialing in, and hopefully this has been interesting and insightful. Happy long weekend for those in the UK, but for now it is 4:30. I'm going to sign off. Peace out. See you all next week. Stay safe. Keep well. #AskAlex.